Good morning, grade 12. We're going to do 3.1 of the November 2019 paper. This is the GUI, the form, and we're going to follow the rules of question 3.1 now. This is the attributes, in other words the private fields. They're telling you what they are, what they describe. If player name, if weight of player, and F score. And now we're going to go to this instruction here. Write code for a constructor that receives the player's name and weight. Now you must remember that the name is a string and the weight you can just see that it's a real number. But let's go and look at the interface. This is the main program that you would open, but then you must also go and open file and open. It's a class that's already been defined there called player underscore u. This is a more typical exam question that you would get where the class has already been written, so you click on it and open, and then it will look like that. Okay, so here we have the class defined already. It's got the uses, the type, tPlayer equals class, and over here these are the private attributes or fields that have been defined. There's no other functionality in this program, in this section, and we've got to write the first thing, which is a constructor method. So let's go and do that quickly. Under public, you write them under public. It's got to receive a name of a player, so I'm just going to say sname colon string, data type to match the private field, and then the weight of the player. I'm going to call it R weight colon real, and that is the second parameter to match the data type of the weight of the player. So now it says that you've got to assign these values to the attribute and set the score attribute to 0. So we're going to highlight it, Control Shift C. Make sure you've got your semicolons, everything in the right place, otherwise it won't be implemented. Now we've implemented, now everything's underneath implementation. You say if player name equals sname. Take note, I'm saying that the private field equals what's coming into this constructor create, semicolon, then if weight of player equals R weight, that variable that's coming in there. It's very important to get this the right way around. Some people say sname equals F player weight and R weight, but it's all wrong. You've got, what you're doing is you're taking your private fields and making them equal to whatever comes into this constructor create. That's that one written. The next one is now going to be write code for an accessor. Oh, we've got to set the score value of, I haven't finished. Set the score value to 0. F score equals 0. Where did I get F score in these private field names? Right over there. There they are. You've got to set that one to 0. So that would have been 1 mark that I would have lost. Okay, now we're going to write an accessor method. Right, I did tell you last term 1, that an accessor and a mutator is the same as get and set. An accessor is a get method, in other words it's a function, and a mutator is a set method, which is a procedure. Now if you remember to match those words up and remember those words, accessor is a function, which is a get method, and a mutator is a procedure, which is like a set method. Right, accessor method, so we know we must write a function, and we're going to call it get score for the F score. So it's a function, so we're going to return the value of F score. So we go write the word function underneath constructor here before the end. That end must stay there. If you remove that end, then your whole class won't work. So you say function get score, but a function must have a data type, and if we're returning the F score value, then we must have an integer function. There we go. Then we highlight it, Control Shift C, and all we do is say result equals F score. There it is. Now we're going to do the next one. Write code for a method called update scores can receive an integer as a parameter and add the received value to the F score attribute. Now there's no mention of get or set or accessor or mutator here. You've got to remember that whenever you changing a private field, like F score is the private field, you use a procedure most of the time, well, all the time. So we are with procedures, you actually change your private field values. So I know that I'm going to make a procedure because it says it receives an integer and adds that integer to whatever F score was or is. So let's call it procedure update score. We have to use the right name that they gave us. Procedure update score. It receives an integer, whatever you want to call that integer. I'll call it rnum. Remember the parameters, when you write your methods you make up your own variables as long as you've got the data type correct. Control Shift C, and all we're going to do is add inum to F score. So we say F score equals, we're setting the value of F score to a new value. F score equals F score plus inum. Done. You're setting it to a new value, adding inum to whatever F score was before, and that's why it's a procedure. Next question, calculate BMI. Right, now this looks like a function, but let's read it properly. Write code for a method called calculate BMI that will receive the height of the player and then return the player's BMI based on the following formula. Okay, there it is. So you're going to get the F weight of the player divided by whatever the height is that's coming in and squaring it. So let's go. And you're going to return the value. So we're going to write a function. Okay. So we're going to say calculate BMI is the name of the function. Function calculate BMI. It's receiving a value, the height. Now I'm going to use R height. I'm going to use a variable that's real because height and weight are normally real values. Okay, calculate BMI receives and returns the player's BMI. Now we are dividing, therefore we're going to be working with real numbers. The function must be a real function. Colon real. See, I even forget to go and put the data type there, so you must remind yourselves as well. Whenever you write a function you must have a colon and what data type that function is. Control Shift C, and now we're going to use the formula. So it receives a height, and then we go and take the weight and divide it by the square of the height. So we say result equals, remember result means you're ending your function. Whenever you have a result, it means that's the end of the function. And whatever the calculation is, so we can use F, whatever the calculation is that you performed will then go and get sent to the calling statement. Divided by, so we can use BODMAS here, square R height. And that's it. Okay. Next one. Or you could say R height times R height. You don't have to use the square if you don't want to. Write code for a method called eligible for selection that can be used to determine the possibility for selection to play at the provincial trials. Okay, and possible is determined by the content of F score. So we're going to look at F score and see if it's from 0 to 7, 8 to 14, or more than 14. So I'm going to use a nice case structure here. Low 0 to 7 is low, 8 to 14 is medium, and greater than that is high, greater than 14. So this is a calculate, it's not calculate BMI, it's called eligible for selection. Oh, is it a function or a procedure? Okay, possible selection is determined by evaluating the score F-score attribute. Used to determine. Write code for a method that can be used to determine the possibility for selection. Now this is quite a tricky one. Oh no, it's not, because right over here it says the method must return the relevant message. So there you go, return, and it's going to be a string method which is returning something, so it's a string function. Function determine popularity. Is that what it's called? Oh no, eligible for selection. Eligible for selection. Remember, it's going to be one word. And it's not going to receive anything. We double check. Nope, doesn't receive anything. It's just working on F-score. So we highlight, Control Shift C, and then we say case F-score of naught dot dot. If you don't want to use a whole lot of if then else, if then else, if then else, then it's better to use case 0 to 7. Result equals, and then you have a low possibility, and 8 dot dot 14. Result equals high possibility, and then you must get rid of that semicolon on that last line there and say else, and I always spell else wrong. This was supposed to be medium, eh? So that one was actually medium, not high. Okay, so there's your structure, and you don't have to have a semicolon before end, and you must not have a semicolon before else. So there it is. Right, so that one's written. Now we're going to write the toString method that's going to display these things: name, weight, and current score. So we're going to use the private fields to display. And there's no calculation, or you don't have to call any other method inside this class. So it's all plain and simple. Function toString. Why is it a function? It's returning a big long string. Control Shift C. Oh, I forgot again, hey? Colon string. Highlight and Control Shift C, and we say result equals if name of player, player name, or we're going to use those anyway. Name, something like that. Anyway, plus hash 13 plus weight. Now we must remember that the weight is a real number, so you say float toString. They don't say that you must format it or anything. So we're not going to worry about that. If weight, although if you look at the output, yeah, you've got to format it to 1 decimal point. There's a trick there. Float toString if weight, comma, if fixed, comma 8, comma 1 decimal point. If weight of player. Name. So you take your private variable if weight of player and you running to 1 decimal point, and then you've got a plus a hash 13 again, because that's got to go onto new line. Oh my word. And then we have the score plus int toString, because the score is an integer. Right, so that's the class written. Easy peasy. Now we're going to go to the incomplete question 3_u. and we have to find this global variable called object obj player, and then we're going to write the code for that. So now we finish that, you do file and save. Always remember, file, save all, you don't lose your work. We're now going to go and do this one, instantiate object. We must find the object name. There it is, obj player. To instantiate the object, it's always important to use the dot create. You have to use the constructor create. The username and the weight of place on the inner boxes provided to instantiate a player object. Okay, now I don't actually have to get variables. I'm going to say if player equals t, what's the name of our class? T player. Is there T? Is it if? Oh, obj player. Sorry, not F. OBJ. I'm forgetting that I'm working in the main unit. When you're working the main unit, this one, you don't ever refer to the private fields like the F player name or F weight of player. You don't ever type them in there. And I just did that. Okay, wrong. You only refer to the obj player, and then you can call the methods after you have used constructor create like this. Can you see I've typed in obj player equals tplayer.create, and then you can go, you see that you have the variables there. So you've got to have a string and then a real number. So inside there you put in your string first, and then you put the real number, and the string will be the name of player. So it's edt name of player, edt name of player dot text, that's a string, and then comma. The next parameter must be real, so you're going to have to convert the weight of player, edt weight of player dot text. You've got to convert that to a floating point value, decimal point value. So string to float edt weight of player dot text. You could have created local variables here, but you don't have to if you want to do it this way, where you put the edit box content straight into the parameter list. Just make sure that you have the string and then the real. Make sure the data type's in the right order, and you are putting it in the right order there. Right, now what is the next instruction? Display a message box, a dialog box, indicate that the object has been instantiated. A dialog box, all you have to do is say show message object has been instantiated. End of story there. So that's that button. Now we're going to go to the 3.2.2, calculate the BMI. Use an input dialog to enter the height of the player. So the person must enter the height of the player using an input box, an input dialog box. We're on 3.2.2, and I'm going to make a variable called RH, and I'm going to say RH equals string to float input box enter height. Okay, so there's that one done. RH or height. Call the random method using the height as an argument to calculate the BMI. So we've got to calculate BMI, which means we're going to call the relevant method in our class definition, this one, this file. Calculate BMI returns a real value, and it's a function, so we have to call calculate BMI on the right hand side, and we have to have a variable that's going to hold that value. So I'm going to make a variable here, another real value. I'm going to call it RBMI, and then we do this, we say RBMI equals, but now you can't just say calculate BMI, no, you can't do that. You have to say obj player dot calculate BMI, and then you must remember that calculate BMI has a parameter. Calculate BMI has one parameter, which has got to be the h. So there, that RH must go in there. So we're sending the height to calculate BMI, the height that the person types in here in the input box. We send it to this function which is existing in that object, but it's defined over here. Okay, calculate BMI. So if you say that an object belongs to this class, it means you can use all of these functions and constructors in your main program. So the main program code is here, and we've got the object declared globally, obj player, and when as soon as you say dot calculate BMI, we are going to use this function here in this class definition that we wrote in question 3.1 just now. We're using that, and we're going to have a height entered in there, and it will return a real value which will be stored over here in the main program. You mustn't mix up your variables, keep them where they belong. Right, now we've got the height. Call the toString method to display the information of the player, and then display the BMI. Right, I'm going to call the toString method. That's what they say we must do. So where are we going to display it? We'll display it over here, red question q3.2 underscore 2. So red question 3 underscore 2 underscore 2 dot lines dot add. Now if you want to use the toString method, remember you have to quote the object name here, obj player dot, and then you can find toString. There it is. So, and then we must also display the BMI. So they want us to display the BMI as well. BMI equals float to string f, and I'm assuming that they want us to RBMI that we used this method to calculate it. So RBMI comma ff fixed comma rounded off to 1 decimal place, comma 8 comma 1. I always use 8. You can use 10 or whatever over there, that second one. That's the number, the total number of numbers that will be included in the display. Right, that's 8 is the total number of digits, and 1 rounding it to 1. You know that from grade 10. Just a reminder. Okay, so we've done the rest of that, question 3.2.2. I'm not going to run the program now because it wastes time. Now we're going to do the update score. The score of the player is updated as the game progresses. Users select a score on the radio group button. Right, we go to our main program, and they're going to collect a score there. And then each time the player scores a game. So get the score from the RGB, the radio group box, question 323, and update the score, return the score, and display the score in the component. So we're going to update the score using RGB, and I'm going to call it var inum integer, and you have to choose what it is going to be. Case RGB question 3 underscore 2 underscore 3 dot item index. So radio group box, so there will be RGB question 3 underscore 23. So remember that you'll have items there in this radio group box, so you can say that one is 0 and that is 1 and that is 2, and if you 0, 1 and 2. Tricky that they made it horizontal aligned here. 0 for 0, oops, we'll have inum equal to 2. For 1, we'll have inum equal to 3, and then for 2, if the item index is 2, then inum will be equal to 5. Now we have to go and call the method to add the score, and if you look in your class definition over here, we have update score. Procedure update score. Now it's procedure. If you know it's a procedure, know that you're not going to use any equal sign or anything. You're just going to write the procedure name, update score. But you also have to remember that you're going to have to put in OBJ player first in order to access update score. Can you see that? There it is. And what are we upscore? We're going to use inum, this variable here, inum. And basically, if I used a different variable, ino, that is also fine. You don't. Inum was the parameter for our procedure there. I added inum there, but when we use update score here, I'm using a different variable name. I'll just change it over there quickly. Right, next thing that we are going to do is return the score. Well, we want to get the score, in other words, get score. So we're going to get score, and I'm going to say our new score will be equal to obj player dot get score. So we want to get the score after we've updated it with the update score. Now we're going to call the method called get score. There it is there, you see. Right, next thing is that we must display the updated score in this panel. So let's go and do that. PNL, there it is there, PNL question 3 underscore 2 underscore 3, PNL question 3 underscore 2 underscore 3 dot caption equals int to string new. There we go, that's that done. Next one is eligible for selection. Let's go and have a look what 3.2.4 is. Example of output of the verifier. Okay, fine, don't worry about that. Write code to call the method that returns a message indicating eligibility, and basically that's 2 marks you're going to display in a result of a label LBL question 3 underscore 2 underscore 4. You are going to display the eligibility LBL question 3 underscore 2 underscore 4 dot caption equals obj player dot eligible for selection. That'll be it. 2 marks for that statement, and you must know that you are calling the procedure, the function, sorry, not the procedure, the function eligible for selection, which is a string function. So you can have it on the right hand side. You have to have it on the right hand side of the equal sign because you've got a caption property there. And that'll be that, and that's finished. I'm not going to run the program. You can try it by yourself and run the program after you've finished.